Hey guys, welcome to Doing It Dan's Way. Today we got my wife's Honda Fit again, and this time the air conditioner is blowing hot. So it looks like we picked up a rock in the condenser, and of course that's the first thing you see when you look at the front of the car from up underneath is that condenser. So the little rock is embedded in there. We actually put some Freon in the system, and you can actually hear it hissing out on that exact spot. So today we're going to pull out the condenser and replace it and recharge the system. To do that on this car, we have to pull off the bumper. We have to pull off the mount that the hood actually clicks into to get out of the way. Pretty easy swap after that. And then we will go through the process of putting a vacuum on the system, and once that's clean and we know we don't have any leaks, then we will recharge the system with the appropriate amount of Freon and oil. So let's get started doing that. Okay, so now with that off, we're going to have to take this section out of the way, because here's the condenser back here. If I take you down here, right there's a rock jammed almost 3/4 of the way through the condenser fins. In fact, right next to it is a bee, which is pretty funny. So that rock is where the leak was, and I could hear it hissing out of here. And if I pushed on this when it was charged, I could hear it hiss real loud. So this is where the spot was, and it's right where that rock is. And when I put the bumper back on, I could actually see that rock right straight through the bumper line. Okay, so all this is just a 10 millimeter socket, by the way. So this guy and one right here. That's all we need to remove. This was supposed to have been a clip. It was missing. Interesting. That guy comes off. And now the condenser is loose. I need to disconnect the coolant lines here. Looks like to get to that we have to come all the way up the backside. Okay, so getting to the back side here is a bit of a challenge. So I just removed this joint here and was able to pull one other piece, get this guy out of the way. And when I take these off, I'm going to want to cover the ports going back into the car, so we don't want to allow humidity to get into the system. That's why we have to use the vacuum pump. So that's what I was going after, coming in this direction. Okay, so now that I have those guys least I can pop the top one off here completely. Pull this straight out. You didn't have to pull it out like this. I'm just pulling it to show you that I'm just going to put a cap over it. And you want to inspect that O-ring as well. Make sure that's good. So I'm going to cap that off so we don't get any intrusion there. Lift it straight out. Turns out there's lots of different kinds of oils you can use. This particular car calls out PAG 46 oil. Whenever you replace a condenser, you're going to take with it some of the oil out of the air conditioning system. So in this case, I want to put back the appropriate amount of oil that would have otherwise been contained inside the condenser. So if you look online, you'll be able to find what that amount would be for this particular swap out for your car. So now we have our oil in there, 0.84 ounces of oil. Drop this in. Get into the mounts down there. We'll leave this one capped for now and work on the bottom because that one was pretty rough to get out. This doesn't fit. As you can see from the shots, there's no way that this goes together. That entry line, the angle of the port basically is welded on inaccurately, or way too high of an angle. It needs to be sticking much more like towards the engine for that that line to come off it properly without just hitting the mounting bracket. So now I'm in this weird spot where either I have to modify the mounting bracket or wrap it all up and send it back, which I really don't want to do. Yeah. It is. Okay guys, so I wasn't willing to just wrap it all up again and ship this thing back to Amazon and ask for a new one. The difference was about 1/4 inch in this thing. It wasn't ridiculous, it was just not going to work. So what I ended up doing was I took the grommet that's on the bottom of the condenser and I just shaved about gosh, not even 1/4 inch, maybe 1/8 inch off of it. That just takes the whole condenser and kind of drops it down ever so slightly on this side, And then I also took this bracket, and if you can see there, just put a couple little cuts in it and bent it slightly. So now when this goes together, it's not touching the condenser line itself. And then this bracket here, I put a little bit of a bend in it just to make it all kind of work together. So now I have a situation where, okay, it all goes in, it connects, it actually looks perfectly fine, honestly. It's just has an extra couple little tweaks to it to make it fit. So anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that bottom line put back on again, get the nut on this top line, and we can get back to work putting a vacuum on this thing. And back there, get the nut on. That's snug. Okay, now I can start reassembling these brackets. Okay, so everything we just did should have taken 45 minutes. If your car is not wrecked, and if your condenser you buy actually really fits like it's supposed to, you can see that this really should not have been all that hard. Yeah, you should be able to pull these two bolts out, pull the two bolts out on the lines, pull out your old condenser, throw in your new condenser, reconnect the two lines, reconnect these two bolts, put this assembly back on, and you'd be right where I'm at today after my 2.5, 3 hours here of tweaking around on this stupid thing. So from here we're going to hook up the vacuum lines. I went to AutoZone, and they let you buy a vacuum pump and a set of manifold gauges, and turn around and just return it and get all your money back. It's basically a loaner, and that's great as long as it's available when you need it. So I went down there this morning, got it no problem, got the oil I needed, got the refrigerant, everything I needed all at one place. It was really sweet. So AutoZone, thumbs up for you. So from now I'm going to go ahead and build the condenser manifold, get it installed on here, and we'll start drawing a vacuum. Got the set of manifold gauges here. So we have the high side, we're going to close that, low side, we're going to close that. And these are the two ends. Now these have a different size opening for each one, so there's no way that you're going to put these on the wrong hole. Now there's two caps. They'll be different colors. I'll zoom in here a little bit. What we're going to do is install these two on the high side and low side caps of the system. So this is the low side one on this car. It has an L on it, so it's kind of helping us out there. This one over here, it's a little bit bigger. It's labeled H, high side. So H is red, it's got the bigger opening on it here. So we're gonna start with this guy closed. So what we've done is we've hooked up the gauges, hooked up the compressor. Everything's off right now, so I'm gonna turn on the compressor. Okay, the compressor is now drawing a line on this yellow, a vacuum on this yellow line. Now if I open up the low side here, you'll see this needle. It's going to go down to 0. If I open the high side, that's going to go negative as well. I'm going to shut off the pump. What we want to see, we haven't even turned on the main valves yet. What we want to see is that these needles don't move. So if you really want to do this really, really well, I guess you could just take a break for 10 minutes or so, come back and make sure that you don't have a leak. I've seen it to where someone actually had a leak in one of these valves, and it made them think they had a problem with the car. So if you have a problem with the car, you have to come back and do this step anyway. So I'm not seeing any immediate change in these needles, so I'm going to go ahead to the next step. So compressor, low side, high side are open. Now I'm going to open up the low side valve here. So now we're drawing a vacuum on the low side. I can turn on the high side. Okay. So at this point we're pulling all the way down to minus 30 throughout the entire system. What we want to do is we want to run this for at least a half an hour, if not an hour. Some people say hours, some people say overnight. Because if your system's been open for a long time, the longer the better. It's just going to get every little molecule of moisture out of the system. It'll also help dry out if your desiccant, the dryer, was exposed to moisture. This would be a way of trying to help get the moisture out of it as well. So I'm going to actually just go ahead and shut it off now and see if the needles go back, drop. Because that'll tell me right away if I have a leak in the system. Well, I hate to say this, guys, but worst nightmare. It is slowly running back down to 0. So I'm gonna run it down to 0 again and see, but it looks like we do have a leak in the system right now still, and that may be one of the connections to the compressor that I just installed, the condenser. Okay, guys, so here's the deal. I just went around and around and around learning something that I'm going to teach you so that you don't have to do what I just did. I just went back to AutoZone and got them to give me a brand new gauge set, because what was happening is I would draw a vacuum, run the system down, goes down to minus 30. You just let it sit here and it's fine for about a minute or two, and then all of a sudden you start losing pressure and it drops off. All this goes to say that when you draw a vacuum on the car, you turn off the valves, both of them, shut off the pump, and then do your reading to see if you have a leak in your car. Makes sense. So let's try that. Okay, so what we've done now is I've drawn a vacuum all the way down. We're sitting at minus 30. Shut off the compressor or the vacuum. Tighten these guys all the way down. So now the system doesn't include the vacuum, which is where I was seeing the vacuum leak, ironically. So now I'm going to let it sit for a good 15-20 minutes. I'm going to do some other cleanup work and see if this gauge changes at this point. While waiting for that, I'm going to go ahead and put this piece back in and work on adhering this rubber piece to the top of the radiator as well. Okay, guys, it's been a little bit here. Needle is absolutely right where we left it. I'm going to say the thing's not leaking, at least based on this. So I'm going to run the compressor now for a good long time, like a couple of hours, and let it really thoroughly dry out the system. Oh, and of course I can go ahead and put the bumper back on, because now that this is all tidied up, I'm only working on the air conditioner. So I'm going to go ahead and stick the bumper back on. Hey guys, good morning. So it's been 2 days. On Saturday I finally got the compressor, the condenser installed, and because this was a salvage car, that took a lot more work because there were some mechanical issues I had to deal with. Also found out how not to use the gauges, and I'll show you how to deal with that as well. But today what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and recharge the system. So what I did on Saturday is I was able to install the vacuum pump and a manifold gauge set to the high and low side, get it drawn down. I left the vacuum pump running for, I don't know, 3 hours, 4 hours. My wife and I went out, did a couple errands, came back, shut it down. Before I shut off the pump, turn these valves off tight, and then shut off the pump. That is the most critical step. I found out I wasted a couple hours by not doing that. But with these valves shut and the system fully connected, I am still showing minus 30 on the gauge here, which is exactly where I left it, 48 hours ago or more. So that makes me feel really good that I have absolutely zero leaks in the system. So from here, the next step is going to be to go ahead and recharge the system. So we're going to leave these guys turned off completely, obviously at this point, and I'm going to use a refrigerant connector that has the gauge built into it. So I'll show you that here in a second. Okay, so referring to the owner's guide, in the specification section it says refrigerant type is 134A. That's the typical stuff used today. I need 14.1 to 15.9 ounces of refrigerant. That's the range by weight that I'm supposed to put in the system. So I'm not going to fill this strictly based on gauges. I'm going to put somewhere in the middle of that range, so probably 15 ounces of refrigerant in the system. So let me know in the comments below if I'm totally wrong on this, but from what my understanding is, we're supposed to do this by weight in this condition. Now, if you're recharging the system and you don't know how much is in the system, that's where setting the gauge on this guy, that's where this comes in, where you set the outer ring to the ambient temperature, and then you want to be between the two marks, and that's how you're setting this based on pressure. So this being a completely rebooted system, going from scratch, this is where we're going to just go by weight. Okay, so a tip when you put these on here, don't hold it like this and put it together, because there's going to be some that leaks out and it'll spray up against your hand and give you a temporary frostbite. Ask me how I know. I'm just going to get it going on there, and just keep your hands out of the way and just spin it on fast. That little bit that came out right there, maybe it would be better if I held it upright, but that was liquid cold and that will burn your hands. And so this guy here, we're going to just pull back on this guy and stick it on. And then open up the can. Then we'll get the car started. Now the system won't even turn on, the compressor won't turn on until the pressure's up to a minimum level. So here we're just going to give it a little bit of a pre-charge, and now I'll go ahead and start the car and see if we can get the compressor to kick on. As you heard, the compressor just kicked on. So, as you can see, my wife needed to use her car. I got the first 12-ounce can of refrigerant in, and 1 ounce of another can. And I'm carefully measuring this, by the way. I'm using a gram scale to measure the number of ounces I'm installing. So when she's back from dropping my daughter off, I'll put the last 3 ounces in. And that will be a new can again, and I'll have to just be careful about putting some in and measuring it. Now you notice that was all done on fast forward, but you notice it took kind of forever to get that can and 1 extra ounce in. It's really cold this morning, and the outside of the can goes completely frosty. So that keeps the refrigerant from boiling and putting itself in the system. I would assume on a really hot day that this would go much more quickly, or if the motor was already really hot and the fan's blowing on it. That hose I have is really, really short as well, and it's really janky. I noticed as I was shaking it, I was actually starting to get a little bit of leakage in this joint down here, so this may be one of the last jobs I do with this little cheapy thing. But honestly, if this isn't something you regularly do, this probably gets you there. It gets you close enough anyway. So, yeah, so I have 1 more can to go. Yeah, this one's empty. So I'll stick on a new one. When she gets back, stick 3 more ounces in, and we'll see if we're good to go. So again, I'll put on a new can. Make sure this guy's all the way off. Screw him on. And just watch out for the leakage. Great. Good to go. Well guys, so I hope this was helpful. This thing's back up and running, compressor's running, it's blowing cold. So that's what I know. Put your comments down below if you know of any other suggestions to do this job better. If you like what you see here, you can click subscribe, and I'd love to see you on the next video. So, have a good one. Thank you, airplanes. It's so hard to get good audio.